Namaskar. Today is May 25th, Tuesday, 2021, and welcome to Daily Global Insights with Sri and Sri. This is episode number 170. We start as always with US news. In US news, DeSantis takes the step and signs the bill that would stop big tech censorship of Floridians. So, your thoughts?
It's the first step towards giving the control back to the individuals, away from the tech platforms and the flimsy approach that the tech platforms have used in arbitrarily banning users using what they call as the fact verification checkers, who also seem to be collusive and collaborative with the tech platforms. So the Florida law now states if you decide to ban somebody off your platform, then that individual has a right to sue and litigate against the platform and claim damages up to $100,000. I think it's a very positive step. I think the next thing should be to increase this to $250,000 and eventually, raise it to $1 million. So the flimsiness and the arbitrariness that the tech platforms enjoy can be put to end. After that, I think there should be even a penalty imposed on the tech platforms in banning advertisements. So I think the only way that you can make sure that the tech platforms comply is punitive financial damages. So they have an economic impact both on the revenue side, plus there is a market kind of punishment, market dings them on the other side. They have got away with everything that we have seen so far only because they have taken shelter under what we call an abusive law, which gives undue advantage to the platforms.
And Mayorkas reveals that his department is working to create tools to help America's children figure out whether they are being fed disinformation. A little bit more information on this. Mayorkas, what is his responsibility here?
His responsibility is their Department of Homeland Security. They're supposed to be having an oversight and management and monitoring of activities which effectively, compromises the state or puts the state at risk. If you recall that there has been a progressive approach in terms of changing the history and the narrative in the schools, which have been objected to by parents. We talked about the critical race theory that is being propped up, the 1619 project, etc. So the parents have raised significant objections to this being inculcated and the left-wing mindset, dropping into or coming into the schools. So I think what the Mayorkas is saying is he's going to come up with a set of tools and which helps the students to delineate between good and bad information. How Department of Homeland Security can play a part is beyond belief when they have political biases in terms of, it doesn't matter whether it's Republican or Democrat, the DHS is run by the government in power.
So, just a couple of thoughts. Why is this administration so unsure of its future? It's like they think they have only 100 days to do everything, and they are doing things, and then they are doing things wrongly, then they walk it back, flip-flopping. What is the thing that is wrong here? I'm trying to understand. Why are they already accepting that there will not be a majority in the House in 2022? That's what it seems to be, sir. Your thoughts, and then we can go on to the next item.
Well, let me explain to you. Let me give you my provocative view on this. The latest theory that is going around the world, propagated, advocated, and with collaborative set of frameworks is called as the Toolkit, right? The word you see, Department of Homeland using the word that they would give the school kids a toolkit to delineate. So the toolkit model is they frame it in the central architecture or central information. And this toolkit becomes both a propagation vehicle, an advocacy vehicle, and then prejudiced manner, move them into a specific direction. So this is one more example of this invisible hand or the invisible set of people who are using this toolkit approach around the world in advocating and shaping their theories in a self-professing manner. I think that's the structure. We have also seen, I think we have pointed out, it's very strange. Biden says, White House says. Biden says, White House says. So what's a White House and what's a Biden? Are they two separate set of people? The answer is no. But this is the new methodology that is coming in, which seems the White House is this curative content framework. Biden is the flip-flopping individual messaging that you see either in press conferences or in the events. And that is Biden being Joe Biden making a statement, and then White House issuing a statement, almost separating the two personas.
And Joe Biden finally condemns the surge of anti-Semitic attacks after ignoring Jewish groups. Again, this is the same thing. Now you will see somebody else coming and saying something nonsensical, like somebody did something on 9/11. What nonsense do these progressives want to spew out, sir?
Well, it's fascinating that you make this observation. He now at last, after so many attacks around many metropolis cities in the United States, ranging from New York to Chicago and so on, Biden wakes up and then condemns, notwithstanding the fact that this has been going on and there's been agitations, etc. So guess what? The progressives led by Bernie Sanders and the famous four gang, initially talked about, hey, the Israelis are racial and the Palestinians are subjected to apartheid, etc. Then they flipped around yesterday and made a statement condemning the attacks. So there seems to be, again, even on the progressive side, there is a flip-flopping going on. And you are beginning to see prejudices of the specific members who are supposed to represent United States, but representing their own personal beliefs, coming in and trying to curate and misdirect the dialogue.
We're also missing Senator Bernie Sanders. He has an opinion and a view on everything. Last I checked, he was a Jewish American. I don't know what he has to say about this final thing that Joe Biden has done, sir.
Well, basically, he is of Jewish faith, and he has made a statement, not yesterday, but day before yesterday. Over the weekend, he has made a statement basically condemning the Israeli action on Palestinians.
So you have these two renegade Jews. One is this guy, the other guy, his name's initials are G and S. So we have a lot of fun in front of us. What will we do without all these people? Dr. Gottlieb.
Schumer has, let's not forget Schumer. Schumer has gone into hibernation. He has no comments to make. And somebody had to remind Sanders, the fight is between Hamas and Israel, not with Palestinians.
Yes. And let's move on to the next item. And Dr. Gottlieb now joins Dr. Fauci in his observation that COVID may have originated in a lab. What is this, 1970s Bollywood movie where the police comes in the last scene and says, don't move? What nonsense is these guys are saying? Everybody knew all along.
The information suppression that has gone on with regard to COVID, it is very clear that the COVID originated, all the evidence points to the fact that COVID originated in Wuhan labs. There was a collaboration between PLA and Wuhan in the development of this, whatever you want to call it, a biogerm or a manufactured germ. There is also in this alleged investigation or information that is leaking from doctors and people who have left, there was also a weaponization program that was being assessed as part of the collaboration between PLA and the specific lab. So now for these guys, initially WHO to sit out and be very collusive and collaborative, and Chinese dictating the terms and WHO listening to it, you are slowly beginning to, the truth is beginning to emerge that they are no longer suspecting this to be what you call origins, anything other than outside a specific lab. It is not a natural evolution. That's what they're coming to. Why they need to use language along these lines rather than saying, yes, we believe that this is based on all the intelligence that we have seen, the origin seems to be in this specific country. In the meanwhile, China has successfully maneuvered and talks about British variant and Indian variant and South African variant, forgetting for a moment they are the main culprits in these efforts. Thailand is pointing out the latest information as I stepped into the program, that they have intelligence to prove that this is not something that has originated organically, and they have done some molecular research and which finds the cell structures as some interesting observations to the past intelligence.
Wow, that is mind-boggling that they can pass intelligence. That means that they have fully capable of mutating into other shapes and forms.
We don't know, sir. So I think that unless and until they make the NIA, the investigative agency report public on this, we can only continue to speculate, and we can basically, pontificate our own theories. But the fact is that every day somebody coming up, and these two guys are very. Scott Gottlieb is the Food and Drugs Administration head, and Dr. Fauci is the head of the CDC program. For them to come and make statements on 2 days, which is consistent with this not natural origin, but it is somewhere it has originated, is a very striking kind of postulation on the theory of COVID.
And White House suggests Biden may drop talks with GOP if spending negotiations falter. PPP loan fraud ran wild as billions were doled out. Tell me about it. I will tell you tomes and tomes of stories about this. So this is again one of those things where people don't seem to know how the money came and how the money went, sir.
Well, first and foremost, I think just Biden is making no progress because GOP proposed, 568 billion and willing to go up to 700 billion. This fellow Biden came back with 1.7 trillion, and basically the Republicans said, "Show me the numbers because I don't see any numbers beyond." And they line itemized the infrastructure. And I think we had some pushback from some of our own audiences. I have stated this. I was part of the 2008-2009 banking effort. This whole Jobs Act that happened, $1 trillion plus, went into doldrums. Absolutely went into doldrums. When you dole out these types of money, there's going to be in between people who are going to make money out of it. This is notwithstanding the fact that PPP programs, even under pushed through SBA and through bank loans, through a bank loan system. Whenever you dispense it outside of it, you're going to have a problem. Whenever you make this program such large with loosey-goosey rules in terms of disbursement, it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat, fraud is certain.
And I had just put up the first slide where Fauci says that it may have come from a lab. And now let's move on to Indian news. Indo American Dialogue, far beyond the realms of irrelevant left-wing Indian National Congress politics. It's about deals and realignment. US needs India more than the other way. Sir, who said this thing, and a little bit more context?
I said it. So therefore, I see a lot of rhetoric. Lots of people sent me information about, which ranges from Dr. Jaishankar's dress code to he being looking like a servant in UK, being sidelined, not having the diplomatic attire for him to engage and conduct, and what is going to be the situation when he comes into United States. Is he going to be given due accordance? So therefore, this is one after the other, the politicians in India, of course, using the media, advocating, what is going to come out of the dialogue between United States and India when Jaishankar is now, I think, on his third day of his trip in United States. So I basically have written, which is effectively to state, notwithstanding this, polarizing, personal frontal attack on the Minister for External Affairs, lot has been done. Okay, lot has been done. So the question here is, why is he here? He is here, people assume that he has come here to beg for vaccines. He's not come here to beg for vaccines. That's one of the things that he would be discussing. But India has got alternative plans, and it will move forward with or without United States. But the fact is that United States wants India, and Mr. Blinken himself is very keen to meet with Mr. Jaishankar, and he will complete this meeting and then only go to his Middle Eastern trip, which we will cover on the global side. Okay, now what else is on the agenda? The agenda is there's quite a few things on the agenda. One is investment. India crossed close to $82 billion, of which $60 billion came via equity investments. There's a lot of capital investments programs that are flowing in from United States in 3-4 key sectors. One is defense, second is pharmaceutical, third is alternate energy. Why did Kelly go to India? He went to India because he sees in India an anchor client in advocating the climate agenda. So therefore, very much investments into the climate sector is one of the big topics that they would discuss. Why did Lloyd Austin go to India? Lloyd Austin went to India because he wants to make sure that there is a defense partnership. Remember, behind the defense programs, there's a whole bunch of lobby actively propagating and advocating that India is a one big spender. So the partnership with India is very critical on the defense manufacturing side. So that's again part of the discussion. Many Indian pundits do not put up this data. The data is what is the bilateral trade, especially those in Indian media who have Chinese advocacy as the main theme. India is one of the largest vehicles that is used by United States in distilling the crude, in the processing and refining of the raw crude. So that bilateral trade, which is often touted, which excludes crude, is close to $155 billion between India and United States. The number in 2019 was around 149, is now around 150, 155. More than anyone, United States, this revenue is $100 billion plus revenue from the processed crude that India imports from United States. And we again advocated that India is the number 2, replacing Saudi Arabia as the importer. United States is number 2 player next to Iraq as the importer or the supplier of crude. So India also processes crude. So his range of discussions is not around begging for vaccines, but a set of topics that covers all these specific domains. Plus, of course, there is this Quad defense cooperation and Indo Pacific anchoring being done by India. So this is the broad set, rather than this filthy dialogue or the propagation that takes place in Indian media about his dress codes to this. Even Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon is a former secretary, has made some comments which is unwarranted, whether India is capable of multilateral relationship. And Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon should be pointed out that India got close to 180 out of the 190 votes in United Nations when the Security Council membership came up, and that was a big victory for the Indian diplomacy. So there's a lot of disinformation and that is propagated. So I have taken the stand and made this statement.
Delhi police visit Twitter India offices over Congress Toolkit controversy to serve notice, but this is there was nobody in the building apparently, and this is over the Twitter flagging Sambit Patra's tweet as manipulated media. What is the latest on that, sir?
The latest on that is the Congress spokesperson, I don't recall his name. He has written to Twitter effectively to state this 11 ministers have propagated disinformation, and here's the reason why they should be tagged as advocates of disinformation campaign. That is the response from the Congress side. But the Delhi police seems to have the word that is used is raided or attended to serve summons, etc. It's still very confusing within the context of what exactly happened. But the fact is that there is something going on as it relates to this Twitter war between the two major political parties and the platform.
When you say 11 ministers of the Congress party or the BJP
party? BJP.
Okay. Lockdown slow up business resumption, and one could see a potential drop of 2 percentage points in the GDP growth, pegging it at 10% instead of 12%. And this is as far as India is concerned. Your thoughts, sir?
My thoughts are, I think that the continued lockdowns only hampers the economy, does not allow the economy to progress. There are two schools of thought. One school of thought is that you have the BJP-led states, which wants to have isolated, controlled lockdowns, and then continue to do the business. Then you have the Congress ruled states, which says or the non-BJP ruled states, which seems to say lockdown. This very much resembles what's happening in the United States. You have the red states and the blue states. Blue states would like to have everything shut down and dole out money going into people's hands. Red state says, I give incentive for people to work. It is not as bad as people think. If you have hygiene and so on, we can get the economy back on rails.
Sir, I have the big boys chart, which is going to show, it shows that India has joined the likes of United Kingdom, France, and Canada in the $3 trillion club. as far as market cap of its companies is concerned. Now, if you would like to share your thoughts on that, because the next item that we are talking about is the FDI into equity that has now jumped 19% to 60 billion for fiscal year 2021.
Right. So I don't have the benefit of, sorry, sir, you should go through the chart. Okay, I don't have the benefit of looking at the chart. Effectively, what it says is that India has seen rapid market capitalization consistent with a growing economy. If you have to have a 5 trillion economy or a 10 trillion economy, then you have to have a robust market capitalization and a set of private businesses driving the economic growth. Governments have historically not been the vehicles of driving the economic growth. If you take a look at that chart, Hong Kong stands there. Now, where does Hong Kong belong to? Hong Kong belongs to China. So therefore, I mean, it is absorbed into China. So you look at the most powerful economies. The most powerful economies have a very, very efficient market system. It's very good news. On a parity basis, for the first time, after a long time, India's market capitalization is almost equal to the GDP of the nominal GDP of the country. The nominal GDP of the country is around 3.1 trillion, and the market cap is around the 3 trillion. Very soon, I think we may see market cap exceeding the GDP. Within maybe next 6 months, we may see the market cap going past it, and it may hit 5 trillion by 2023, well ahead of the 5 trillion nominal GDP that India is aspiring. There are two factors which are driving it, and I think you have answered. One of them is you have answered. $60 billion of capital went into foreign direct investment into equities, Indian equities market. That's number one. Number two, the private capital formation. You may not see this data there. This is just breaking news. FY21, India has a different, I think, we in the the markets here follow a calendar year. Of course, US government follows a different calendar, a different financial year, and India follows this March 31st financial year. So for FY21, India had $82 billion of FDI, foreign direct investments. So when you look at equities, when you look at the equity flows, and when you look at the investments, private investments like manufacturing, and then into venture capital, private equity, alternate investment classes, what it is saying is the capital formation is coming from private sector, which is the vehicle for growing the market capitalization of the country. This augurs well, because the government cannot infuse this level of capital. It doesn't just have the balance sheet to do so unless it borrows.
And sir, I have the vaccination strategy that Dr. Vardan has laid out for India as the wave 2 is flattening. I have that graphic in front of me. Viewers, what this shows is a month-wise plan of how many vaccines of various manufacturers are going to be produced and made available in India. For those of you who may not be able to read the font, I'm going to just walk down the thing. Sir, with your permission, I just want to walk down the thing.
Please.
By December, I'm going to the last column, last row. India is going to have 259 crores, which should be, even assuming that you count first dose as one, second dose as second one, that should cover the entire population. The plan is to vaccinate all of India, including the 18-year-olds, perhaps even the 12 to 18 by the end of the year. And if all these people deliver, and this is not just Covishield or Covaxin, there is Sputnik, there is Zycov-D, there is Corbevax, HGC-09, Covaxin-based nasal spray, Janssen, Covavax, and so on and so forth. So there are at least 9 vendors who are planning to be commissioned to give this thing. And I don't even see Eli Lilly here, and that would mean that there will be also some redundancy built in. It also has one J&J vaccine, 20 million. Remember that J&J requires only one shot. So essentially, the roadmap that we have been asking for, the government has shared it with us. It's very unfortunate that India's media won't share this data, but we do. We say that we see it, and we say it as we see it. Sridharji, your thought before we go on to the next thing, which is the latest data on the the COVID numbers, sir.
Well, I think the key message here is people should, even if there is skepticism in the observations of the government data, the fact is, even if you assume that you hit 50%, a probability weightage of success at 50%, that's still a substantial number. There's one of the charts that Sriji is going to share, which will show where India is, relative to rest of the world. So the number of doses that is given by India is close to 200 million. The one which is above that is United States, which is close to 290 billion doses. These are astronomical numbers. The only difference is in the population column. India has got 1.3 trillion, 1.3 billion people. United States has got 330 billion people. Then if you go down to the number 3, I think either it is Britain or Brazil. What it tells you is, with all the nonsense that has been thrown at India, it's a substantive progress by way of what India is trying to accomplish in dealing with this pandemic situation by way of vaccines. So, in my view, that India, along with Britain, Israel, United States, Russia, and of course China, are one of the few countries which have not only an indigenous vaccine program, but also a partnership-based program to build a base of vaccine manufacturing to deal with this gigantic crisis called COVID.
Sir, I'm just lining up the picture now, and we are going to viewers. What we are seeing here is the growth of or the way in which the vaccination process has taken place. This is an independent body that is done this, and you can see the URL. It's called ourworldindata.org, and it is looking at COVID vaccinations. And if I start this animation, what it shows is how vaccination has been carried out over the period of December 27, 2020 up until today. So here we go. What Sridharji just mentioned, you can see that it is United States, India, United Kingdom. In terms of sheer numbers, that has been the effort. Remember that population-wise, there is big differences. But when you start talking about vaccinations, that is a manual process. More the number of people, more the logistical overhead, more the challenge of making sure that the vaccine doesn't get spoiled because of weather variations. Remember, India now is high summer, so things are very, very hot. So there's all sorts of challenges, and yet India still hasn't done too badly. And you can see that there are two shades there. The first one is people fully vaccinated. The dark one is the fully vaccinated, which is less than the other one, which is one shot. Those are the people who have gotten one shot. Sridharji, you can take it away, sir. I have shared the data now. So let's go back to our discussion about how. So there's definitely now a roadmap, the way I see it. And I think I seem to have lost. Oh, you're there. Okay. You're so still. I thought I had lost you. Go ahead.
No, I'm just listening very carefully.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So the next chart that I would like to show is the current COVID chart as to what is the situation as of 24th May. And you can see that the total vaccination doses is 19 crores and 60 lakhs, and vaccination doses per day before was 942,722. That is 9,42,000. And you can see that the number of active cases is continuing to go down. You can see the down arrow. For those of you who are not able to see it, I can tell you it is down by 84,683. The deaths are going up, but that's an after effect. So the whole point here is the curve has flattened. India has gotten control over this. You now have to let this thing work through the system. And I think I'm doing the speaking for you, sir. Please weigh in.
No. I think that you're. So I think the message that Sriji is giving is the three essential facets. One is the vaccines and vaccinations. So there is a program that the government has embarked, Indian government has embarked on. that will meet the objectives of the nation in terms of vaccinating the population. I'm not suggesting there are no problems. We're just reading numbers. There's on-ground issues. But again, when you talk to a lot of people in India, you have both sides. One, they are vaccinated. It doesn't matter what the age group is. Many are vaccinated. Many have received dual vaccination. Unlike in the United States, there is a minimum time log of 3 to 4 months in India between the first vaccine and second vaccine, whereas in United States, the mean time lag between the first and second vaccine is a month, maximum a month. You will get either if it is Pfizer, it's about 3 weeks. If it is Moderna, it's about 4 weeks. So there is also a lag in terms of the first and second vaccine in India. The second is there was this big issue around oxygen. They seem to have been moving well on its way to address those oxygen issue. The three is that does India have the capacity to deal and take charge of this? It seems to indicate that they have a well orchestrated program, and it may have its own headwinds, but the fact is that it does have a program, as the numbers indicate, to make their way. The only question that is left open is, are there going to be more political waves, agitations, and more social non-distancing activities, again to provide either provocative, deliberate, or drivers, because that's what India needs to be cautious of, which is one of the reasons why the world has been successful, is because of social distancing. Mask, whether you mask or non-mask, is a different story, but at least the social distancing is something that one must observe if one has, until the community immunization or community or herd immunization process.
Immunity.
Yeah,
Right.
no, herd immunity process takes over. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And let's take a quick look at global news. We're already 31 minutes into this program, so I'm going to kind of zip through this. Perhaps you can give an overall update on this. In global news, Biden is sending Blinken to West Asia to sort out ties with Israel and reconnect ties with Palestinians. Blinken, time to hear from North Korea on denuclearization. So your thoughts on this, and then we'll quickly go through the rest of the news.
Well, basically, I think this is all the political fallout that came out over the weekend, and Biden stood up and talked about in support. We again covered yesterday the Israeli ambassador making a statement around the right to choose its own course. So he's sending Antony Blinken both to meet with Israel, as well as, remember, he's meeting Palestinians.
And Hamas Terror Chief hails enormous support from the West. Japan leverages self-defense forces to start mass vaccination mission. Remember that Japan has hardly any vaccine, so they are like starting from zero now. US urges no travel to Japan as Olympic countdown ticks on. I don't see that happening. In fact, Taiwan slams WHO or WHO indifference as it fails to win an invite. The WHO has not invited Taiwan, again for fear of incurring the wrath of China, I guess. And Afghan pullout raises fears in the United States of China's unfettered access. The last 2 points, sir, if you could touch upon it.
The last 2 points, which is Taiwan slams WHO.
Yes.
Taiwan has always had a footprint with WHO in terms of many programs. While China has come down quite heavily on WHO, it seems to have exerted its influence to make sure Taiwan has no part of it within WHO, because then it gives the independence as opposed to being Chinese perceived view that is a province extension of mainland China. I think Taiwan has not taken that very lightly. So I think that's my first observation. As far as Afghan, we have already covered this in the DGI. Last week, DGI, if you go and take a look at it, the Zhejiang province retooling or the remodernization of the Zhejiang province raises questions, because it is not bordering with India, or it's not bordering with any other, but it is bordering with some of the Russian republics, and it seems to be bordering with Afghanistan. What exactly is the intent? So there is the growing fear that whether there is opportunity for the Chinese army to walk in.
And US and Europe are weighing sanctions after Belarus diverts plane and arrests a journalist. So the plane was diverted for the sole purpose of arresting a journalist, wasn't it?
Indeed.
And
this is sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Finish your thought.
So this is basically complete political intervention. It was within the Belarus airspace. And, when you are within the Belarus airspace, you have the ability to direct the planes because it's a sovereign airspace of that country. But it is a reflection of the way the communist regimes, Belarus regime, is considered to be very close to Mr. Putin and very sympathetic to the Russian cause. And Russia is very proactive in managing Belarus. Some DGI sessions ago, we covered about Belarus and protests and how the rogue regime continues to run, notwithstanding the fact that there is no public support. So this is a very provocative act, and I think EU and US may take steps to address this.
Sir, you will be surprised to know that a certain chief minister of a certain southern state of India also tried to divert the plane back to the control tower of the city which he was ruling from. Anyway, it's a story for another day. These things kind of happen all the days, all the time now. Democracy is a joke for many. And as long as the other institutions such as judiciary and law and order don't act independently without fear, this is going to continue to happen. Let's take a quick look at markets, sir. Dow climbs 180 points as led by tech and reopening stocks. So technology again is back on the way up. So we are around 34,000 points now. And what do you think is going to be the effect of inflation? Because that is here now. It is for real, it is here, and the Fed is not thinking of raising the interest rates to cool down the thing. What are your thoughts, sir?
It's very simple, which is inflation is at 4.2%, which we indicated, which is well-known fact. Wage inflation is at 0.7%. PPI, purchase price index, is grown 7%. So inflation is here. It's very simple. When your inflation is rising, where interest rates is 0% or close to 0.25%, and when you say you're not going to raise the interest rates because inflation is temporary, what is the next consequence? You're going to see the positive impact flow into the stocks. So you are beginning to see that weigh in the rising. So inflation is high, interest rate is zero. So where is the opportunity? The opportunity is in the growth stocks. So what's the growth stock? Technology stocks. So the money has gone in. What else? The economy is reopening. So when the economy reopens, people go and spend because there's plenty of cash available through the dole out that has been given. So the reopening stocks and the tech stocks are driving the momentum in the absence of a clear policy, in the absence of clear monetary policy on how inflation and interest rates are going to be aligned.
And I want to temper that with the news that the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, has sold all his holdings in Apple. Does he think that Apple's price has peaked? We don't know. We will wait and see who's going to be right, whether Sridhar Chityala's prediction or the Oracle of Omaha is right. So we will wait and see on that. We will come back and periodically visit these things because, see, nobody is perfect here. Everybody thinks market is going to move in a certain direction. So we will see. The last item for today, sir. Fed Lael Brainard pushes digital dollar as central bank currency raise gains momentum. We touched upon this last week. So your thoughts?
I think my thoughts are that there is a growing sentiments that this crypto or digital dollar denominated, digital yuan denominated, digital yen denominated is a reality. Large volume trades with few transactions can occur. So I think, again, I'm probably repeating it the third time. Fed is likely to publish a paper on this as to how it proposed to tackle this specific issue. All gives impetus. And I think Bitcoin is back at 40,000. Very soon, probably it will get back to 50 or 60. The Omaha of Bitcoin stocks, Tommy Lee, thinks that it will be 100,000 by end of the year. So just to defend myself on Apple, I'm not advocating Apple. I'm just advocating broadly the tech stocks, which will drive, because everything is around tech. The consumptive patterns as you go to digital is huge. That is why when economy reopens, everything has disruptive transformation has occurred during. So you're going to see a lot of tech stocks, and you're beginning to see even in the content consumption, the AT&T Discover deal with I think it's a Time Warner. Then you have the MGM deal with Amazon. All this is a reflection of the changing consumptive patterns driven by technology. I think Apple part of it will stay away and will go by the guidance of Mr. Warren Buffett.
Well, I was just making it a little bit interesting. I know you did not specifically choose out Apple as a stock to really look for. I'm just having fun at your expense.
Pulling my
And
leg.
you've
You're
set me
pulling my
straight.
leg.
You've set me
You're
straight, and that is fine. We're going to have some banter back and forth. And with that, we bring to an end today's segment. We had one of the highest viewerships today. We would like this to continue. Please do subscribe to our channel if you have not already done so. Also consider joining our membership program. Don't worry, you can be a member for 1 month and then you can choose to not be a member the next month. Whatever is your appetite for donating to our cause, please feel free to do so. As always, Sridharji, it's a pleasure having you on this program. You do bulk of the lifting. I'm just here to bring the third downs. You are doing the first down and the second down. If this were to be a football game, and many of you, I'm sure, understand what I'm saying. If it is cricket, he's doing the Virender Sehwag in full flow, and I am the remaining 10 batsmen who don't have to do much. So that is what this show is all about. Once again, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, sir. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you and namaskar, and have a wonderful day in the United States and evening and whichever time zone you are.